Welcome to the first session of the Gaming Academy. Today with us we have Nourhan Sharif. Nourhan is a great friend and a wonderful game designer from Egypt. So she's going to be talking to us about, surprise, surprise, game design. So if you have any questions or anything, please leave them to the end or when she says that we can ask questions. She's going to introduce herself. She's going to talk a bit about what she does and basically the basics of game design, basically. So Nurhan, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashraf. Hello, everyone. As Ashraf said, I'm Nourhan Sharif. Based in Cairo, Egypt, Dunya. I have been in the industry for actually 10 years, wow. And I've been, 8 of those years, I've been working with Unreal Engine. First, I was working primarily with Unity, and then I joined Instant Games, a studio in Egypt that is the co-developer of Ark Survival Evolved and Atlas and Ark 2. And they sort of pulled me into Unreal. So that was the transition that I got from Unity to Unreal. And I worked there for 7 years, and then I became a mother, so I had to stay put at home for a while, and then now I'm working as a lead Unreal engineer for Iron Belly Studios. And I guess that is it, as briefly as I can go through. I've specialized in, or I've been working with game design on multiple occasions. It was during the first studio that I ever joined, Absolvate, when I was working with Unity. And then I worked also as I put on the designer hat and worked on the design of an unannounced game during Instinct Games. And then, there were me being part of an indie studio where I also worked on game design, and now even as a lead, I have to wear the design hat for a while in Iron Belly to be able to balance things out from the lead designer's ambitions and what the technicalities can actually provide, because designers have the sky as the limit, right? But when you're wearing both the designer and the developer hat, you're able to manage these expectations a little bit better, and at the same time provide like insights or extra point of views that the designers don't normally take a look at and contribute to the conversation. So that's briefly it. Uh, Let me share the screen. I mean, I just did it. I should be able to do it again. Okay, so are you getting it? Is this slideshow working? Uh, Ashraf, at least, is it
Yes, it looks
working?
like it's
Okay,
working. Yes,
okay,
100%.
sorry. All right, so before we begin, I mean, the window went away, so I cannot see the entire crowd, but I want to pick like anyone from the crowd to ask why do you like games? I'm sorry, there's like a very sorry. Okay, I know. I'm sorry, I can't see who are in the meeting. Okay, I see the crowd now. So just kicking off a little bit with ice breaking, and just want to know if you could type maybe in the chat. Why do you like games? Why do you want to make games? Okay, I like seeing how games work because, well, that's that's enough reason. Okay, because it's fun. Okay, who else? Come on, drop them. Real. Because they are fun, a great way to bond with others, the rewarding aspect of gameplay, translation, a story into a game. I love the experiences, put my creativity in something playable, escape from brutal reality. Yeah, that's not a joke. It is. Love the stories, perfect way to paint a picture, teach my students. Right. So I see a lot of different reasons, a lot of uh, directions for why you would love games, and will it's great because it sort of makes a point of what I'm about to say in this session. So another question, and it's kind of related. What do you think makes a game, or what do you think makes any game a good game? So, what are the aspects that when you find it, you say, okay, that's a good game? The storyline. Okay, story again, story, plot, story. Okay. Game design player, how it's told, gameplay, scenario. Okay, the comment got removed, I think. Depend on the genre. Let's just say your favorite game. What makes your favorite game, you know? Art style, game mechanics, pleasing experience, gameplay, story, visuals, immersion, movements are flawless, playing with friends, easy to play. Okay, so I think we can all agree that all the reasons that have been listed can be defined into a good gameplay experience. When the experience is good, you generically say this game is good. And experience can be divided up, as you guys said, story, art, even movement, being immersed into the game. So that's what makes these games good for you. Right. Uh, so let us.
Nurhan, you got muted for a second. So,
Oh, okay. How did I do that? Okay. So I was saying, Teams is proving great, by the way, Ashraf, so far. Okay, so
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No problems.
so let us dive in. What is games? So I've been talking about games, right? But what defines if we're looking into a dictionary, what is the definition of games? If you take a look at what Wikipedia, for example, said, if you look up a game, so it says a game is structured playing, usually undertaken for enjoyment and sometimes as an educational tool. There's also another definition that it's a system in which players engage in conflict that is defined by rules, and there's a resulted outcome, and that outcome is sort of what determines who's the winner in that conflict. And it's also an activity among two or more people taking decisions and seeking to achieve their objectives. But that's games, right? What is video games? So that's games. And the previous definitions did not apply anything whatsoever that it has to be digital, right? So games don't have to be video games, like, for example, Monopoly or any board game, chess, badminton, or tawla in Egyptian. So these are games. They follow the game design rules, even if though they are not video games. So the point is that game design does not have to be just video game design. You can game design anything. You can take up some cards, there's stuff on them, and voila, you have a game, even though it's not a video game. Video games are basically electronic games involving interaction and UI to generate feedback. So games are you interacting with something is processed inside, and then it gives you feedback. So you're able to interface with it, or you're able to interact with it, or you're able to get immersed inside. So that's a video game. Oh, sorry, why is it? Oh, sorry, I'm again boomer with presentations. So yeah, so we can say that games are and in fact can be defined as interactive movies. And I think I saw this in one of the comments that I was asking, why do you like games? Because it was like an interactive story. So yes, it can be seen as interactive movies. Video games are not just a set of rules or conflict, but inside of games, video games, not games, inside of video games, you're an actual decision maker that can contribute into the outcomes of that story or change the way that things are flown. You have power that is different from the regular games provide, right? And that generates game experience. So what I've asked you also a while ago is what do you think makes games good, right? And most of the answers were storyline, art, immersiveness. All of these lie inside of the category of game experience, and that's a very important term to know as a designer. What defines when you're working on a game? What defines the game experience? What are the elements that are interacting together inside of your game that generates the game experience? Because the game experience, you cannot say that it's just something that you can tweak with buttons and sliders. Game experience are a set of systems that are working together, a set of rules that are put together that generate this game experience, be it storylines or artistic, or maybe even just, the sound, uh, the sound of the game and the music inside of a game. It generates the mood, and playing the game creates that experience, being immersed in that. So that's the game experience. Why is it repeating itself? Sorry about that. So let us delve really quickly on the history of games. So games, as I said, it's not just video games, it's also anything that is a set of rules, or imaginary conflict with certain outcomes, and you take decisions, that is considered as a game. It's not just video games. So if we look at it that way, we have 5,000 years old worth of history in games. And the earliest game ever known was the Senet, or Senate, or Egyptian Senate. It's a game, that the dead played with the gods, that determined if they were going to heaven or hell in the pharaonic era, or the pharaohs. It's similar to chess, I would say. So that's the very earliest board game that we know. And the first known board game was Tifl, with something similar to chess. And then fast forward like 4,000 years, we will have our first video game, and that is Space Wars. I think it's actually Pong. Some say Pong was actually the very first video game, and it was just like two lines and a dot that's going back and forth. But yeah, we'll not delve into that. And this opened up the gate for all of the awesome video games that are basically part of our journey and our lives, and why we're starting game dev. And then the emergence of commercial games as we know it, and franchises that are built are sorry that are generating movies and action figures and all that. So we can see game evolution as consoles as well. So before, as I said, it was just board games or card games or anything that's just physical, and the entire thing, or even D&D, would be pen and paper. But then it starts to have consoles and PCs, and now we can play on with Kinect, with VR. The sky is limit. The sky's the limit, right? But yeah, that was like a quick introduction about games. There will be a section for Q&A mid every section, so don't worry. And also, heads up, we'll be having some fun little activities, so prepare a pen and a paper with you for the time when the time comes. All right. So pressing start. Let's begin. First things first. There are some misconceptions about gaming. I know this meme is old. As I said, I'm a little bit of a boomer, I would say, but this meme is very accurate. And even 10 years later, me has been part of this journey for 10 years, it still stands the same, unfortunately. So as a game developer or a game designer, people think that all I do is just play. I'm playing games. I'm having fun. You're working as a game developer, you should not complain. It's not like you're working in a bank, or you're working as a regular software developer. You're making games and you're having fun. But actually, what I actually do is just being tired all the time. It's not what people think. It's just not because you're making something fun means that the process is fun. But that is not this is not the. I'm not trying to make people think that making games is bad. But what I'm trying to say is it has its ups and downs, and it's not just playing games or making games. There's a lot of work being done to get the experiences that we see. Um, And game roles, it's not just, designer and developer and artist. There are a lot of roles, and I'm pretty sure everyone in this meeting know. But even the tiniest little thing, like maybe character movement, can have it's just one developer working on 3Cs, or camera, character and control, the feel of the player and how the animations react and all of that. This can have just one developer for it, or this is just one role for it. But that is mainly in big corporates. So the bigger the studio is, the more detailed of roles that are required there. In indie studios, however, you would need to wear you would need to wear multiple hats, right? You would need to work as a network programmer and work as a gameplay programmer, maybe even AI programmer, and sometimes you would even work as a technical artist. So it's a tad bit different when you're an indie, because of the size of the studio and the requirements of the project and the funding and all of that. But as you move up into bigger corporates, your role becomes a little bit specialized. And that's why I'm trying to say that it's not just becoming a game designer or a game programmer. You can specialize in that, like having just a weapons designer for, let's say, shooter games. So there's just one person for how the weapon feels and reacts in the game and all the different types of weapons. I think I did not, I skipped. So yeah, there's like classes of weapons and how each weapon recoils and, does this kickback and reload time and equip and unequip. All of this requires very specialized designer that is just focused on weapons. And sometimes there are AI designs or NPC designers. So these are people that only design these stuff. But not to hug too much on the roles, let's proceed into the game development lifecycle. So just before we begin game design, we need to understand the cycle of game dev. Uh, so first is, voila, the game design. The first thing is we have an idea, right? And um, we want to make it reality, but it does not magically enter like you don't magically have it in your head and then work a little bit on your computer and it comes into a game. You need to iterate on that idea. So first you have the sketches. You take a look at the game mechanics, and that is something we'll talk about in depth today, and what makes your game different maybe than any other game. If I'm making a platforming game, what does it make it different from Mario, for example? And so we start to iterate on the theme, on the rules, on the core mechanics of this idea until we reach something that is tangible a little bit, and that goes into prototyping. So we created prototype. Sorry, I was pointing here, but it's here. So we have the design phase, and we prototype. When we're concepting, before we go to prototype, if the concept does not meet the minimum requirements for playtesting or for prototyping, for example, we're going to create a battle royale with a lot of characters, a lot of classes, and each character has their own weapons and their own animations and all of that. So how you're going to prototype it, you need to minimize the scale a bit, take a vertical slice of how that game is looking like. So it goes back into concepting. You create a concept that is enough to build on, but at the same time is not so big, so you can create a prototype of it. And playtesting or prototyping is very important because when you're prototyping, you're determining if this idea has potential. Is it something that's fun? So sometimes you would dive into working for years in a project, and you even go into the visualizing and the art, and you add all of these really cool animations and really good dialogue and story, but it's not actually fun. When you play it, you find out this is not fun. I'm not enjoying. And so you have spent years of money and work and time, valuable time, into something that did not meet the standards or did not meet the what you were looking for, what you were aiming for. So that's why prototyping is very important. As I said, it's just taking like a slice of the game and trying to make it as fun as possible. Make sure that it's scalable and it meets the minimum requirements of your own checklist. That does this have enough of the story to go on with? Does this have enough of the what the game will be like basic skills, for example, and what we'll build on as a skill tree? Check. Does this have if it's a multiplayer game, does this have the minimum replication properties of the minimum how that it will be playing over the network and what needs to be done? Check. The controls, does it have all, if we're gonna, let's say it's not VR, let's say it's just it will be working cross-platform. Is it something that we can do or we cannot do? So there are like a little bit of checklist that varies from one game to another that you need to make sure that when you're prototyping, all of that is there. All right, so we're playing testing. The idea concept checks out. Okay, so let's build on it with level design. So games have levels. How are we gonna have the character or whatever that game is, how we're gonna progress the player from 0 to 100? How if we want to if we want to have him spend like 50 hours playing that game, or that's the average playtime of the game, how is he gonna spend it, and how is he gonna be happy about it throughout all those 50 hours. So this goes into the design phase. So we have the art design of things, and we have the assets. Assets is like UI, or anything breakable in the game, or anything that's game elements in the game. We'll talk also more about game elements. So all of that is like a cycle here. So you have the base, let's say base concept design of what will be going on. Let's say character visuals and UI, just the first level of it. If that checks out, if everything, let's say if it's an RPG game, we have a hotbar, we have an inventory system, we have character customization system. So these are built on as seeds. And at the very first iteration, we have the seed of an inventory system and a seed of a character customization system that are very crucial to continue with the very first iteration of the game. And okay, so we go into the testing and all of that. Okay, we have the very first seeds working very well. Let's expand on that. The inventory system should have the ability to use weapons, or use abilities. So we add the ability system and build on the inventory system. And the character customization, we want to have skins. We want to have, let's say, outfits. We want to have customized outfits that the player can do. And so we build on that character customizations. Blah, 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 blah. Goes in, comes out, and then we test. Okay, testing works. We are gonna start with the news phase and so forth. At any given point, let's say we have reached the level, we have a very basic RPG game, dungeon crawler, for example, something like Diablo, and we're very confident in it and we're very happy with it. But let's say it poses some challenges in the market that we're trying to conquer. So we're this is our first dungeon crawler game, and obviously it's conquered by Diablo, Torchlight, and other games that are very dominant in that area. So we have like a decision to make, and it's usually here in playtest or in production, but usually here in playtest. It's raised that, okay, so this game does not have anything unique to it. It's just a copy of another game. Some people take the risk and just go ahead with it, but some people go back into maybe even here into the conception phase and just add a little bit of an extra spice to the way. Let's say it's a dungeon crawler, but it's in space, for example, or it's a dungeon crawler, but I don't know, you cannot die. Any sort of spice that makes it different, and it goes back again in design phase. Sometimes it doesn't have to go into design phase a lot, and then it goes back into prototyping and testing, and then you know it becomes ready to at least be announced. It doesn't have to be shipped right away. But that's like a simplified version of how it is. It's usually a lot more detailed and a lot of more of a detailed flowchart, but that's just a basic idea of the game development lifecycle. So what is required as knowledge for game design? Actually, you don't need knowledge for game design. You need to be a gamer and be up to date to what is in the field and very passionate about it. Um, I was gonna pause for questions, but since I'm taking a look at the time, so I'm gonna skip the questions now, and we can go about it later. Sorry about that. So, let's start with the juicy stuff, right? So the design concepts. Um, sorry, it's paused. Yeah, sorry. I did not mute myself, right? Okay. So basic design concept is, I don't think I did a chart. I wanted to do a chart to simplify it, but well, let's say it's a tree, okay? So basic design concept is split into structure, core mechanics, and level development. So, sorry, I did it like that. Okay. So we'll dive into this, I promise, in detail. So game structure is the rules of the game. What defines it? There are world rules and gameplay rules. The world rules are like, for example, what does the world look like? And are there like, for example, if the world is clay, for example, can I interact with it and shape it and create my own structures? Like the rules that define what the player can and cannot interact with in that world. And there are gameplay rules, and that's what defines what the player can and cannot do. So can they jump? How far can they jump? Can they crouch and crawl? Can they fly? Can they control time? So these are gameplay rules. And there's, of course, the goal, the achievable thing that the the person, the player, is that wants to do. Like, for example, Mario, the goal is to find the princess, right, and save the princess, but she's always in another castle for some reason. But that's the goal. The goals can be different. It can be time constrained. It can be like finish something before the time runs out, or it can be I don't know, just filling the board with your color, for example. So yeah, there has to be a goal that is clear and challenging and gives the we'll say the player as the person who's actually playing on the keyboard, right? So it gives the player a feeling that, okay, I've done something important today. I feel accomplished. So goal types, I think I sort of jumped the gun with that one, but goal types can be story-based, just like I said in Mario. There's the princess he wants to reach or find or save. It could be like most of the AAA games, it's story-based, like Assassin's Creed. You know, take corruption out, for example, or yeah, so it can be story-based, something in the story that you're trying to achieve. And it's actually, in my opinion, it's the hardest kind of goals, is having the player who plays the game feel attached to the characters and feel motivated and driven to fulfill their destiny or finish their quests, for example. And time-based, as I said, for example, capture the flag in 10 seconds. Oh, just a second. I think I lost you guys. I'm sorry, something broke.
Still here, all good.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure what happened. Just give me a second. Because I was looking at you guys here. Ah, okay. Thank you, teams. Okay, so as I said, time-based, you can have capture the flag in 10 minutes, or I think PUBG has zones and the zones close and all of that. I haven't played PUBG, but it's time-based, and it's creating stress, and people need to do or achieve their goals faster and all of that. And there's the open world games, exploration, or games like Minecraft. explore the world, build your own nest, build your own stuff. That's also type of goals. People sometimes are looking for just being free, doing whatever they want. Okay, so next thing up in game structures is game elements. So when you're creating a game, you put in the rules of the game, you put in the goals of the game, but what is the other stuff in the game? Gameplay elements represents anything that the player can interact with, player can use, the player can even if it's just outputs or anything. Gameplay elements is basically everything in the game that works in the favor of the player or creating the spices in the game. So it can be, for example, collectibles or cards in the game. It can be like, for example, in Sonic, little hoops, golden hoops. So you can define the gameplay elements in there and how it feeds into the character. So does it increase its score, or does it just provide maybe buffs? And it can increase the time restrictions that we have, for example. So this comes into the spices, and you can have elements that built on it, and it starts small at score and becomes bigger with time, and that also is something we'll dive into in in depth. Okay, so next up in the design concepts. So one thing, as we said, is the structure. We have structured the game, right? We have defined the goal and the game elements, and we have defined the rules of the game. How are we going to define now the core mechanics? And core mechanics is the controls, the operation rules of the player. So pressing C to crouch and pressing space to jump is considered as core mechanics. So it's mainly defining how the player plays the game, okay, and what the player does to play it. So yeah, operation rules. These rules can be defined into or not defined. It can be split up into multiple categories that you can handy pick from those. So there are, for example, rules in controls, right? But there are also rules inside of the game and how it operates. And it will make sense in a moment, I promise. So if we say, if we say space as a control mechanic, core mechanic, how can space play in the way that players do play the game, or how does a space play in the operational rules of the game? So if there are discrete space and continuous space, like something 2D and 3D, discrete space is something like XO or tic-tac-toe, I think. So discrete space is having like a grid, for example, and inside of these grids are the same, but each element or each grid cell is different. So if I put X inside of one grid, it doesn't matter where in that grid it lies. But if I put X here and then the grid beneath it, it makes another X, right? So this is a core mechanic. You have to stick to the space of the game. The operational side of the game, or the operational side of this core mechanic, is that you need to stick inside of these grids,
Gonna
and you
eat.
need to match.
Um,
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Uh, so yeah, I was saying. So there's the discrete element in the space element, and you can say that you can define that cells, for example, are that space of that game. Tower defenses, for example, have space laid out as a grid, and you can only place elements in these game elements in these spaces. So that's the one of the core mechanics. Let's say in a tower defense, the space. There's continuous, like the regular games, 2D, if it's, let's say, a platformer or even top down. So it doesn't matter where you stand. You can shoot from anywhere, for example, and same with 3D. And sometimes there would be nested. So there's a discrete space, and inside it is a continuous space. It's all up to the design ideas, really. I'm sorry, it's frozen. Ah, so here is a video. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Let me know if you can't. But here's a video of a game called Fez. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of it, but it's utilizing space as a core mechanic in a different way. So it's 2D and 3D, but uh, let the video speak for itself. Let me. I cannot. So yeah. So as you can see, the game is 2D and 3D, right? So it starts with this character that he thinks he's living in a 2D world, but one day when he wears on this fez, he discovers that the world is actually 3D. We can hear, but the screen share is really choppy. Well, I will share the video, but what I really want you guys to see is so he can move around in this 2D space, right? But it's actually, you can see he can switch the sides of the building, and according to where he stands, his viewpoint changes. So you can see he's trying to climb, and he can continuously climb onto the side of that. The game is 2D, but the designer was able to utilize 2D and 3D together to create this very unique core mechanic, right? You can see that he's standing on here, and he can be standing on that side when he flips as well. So he's using it in an extreme level, and you can see here, for example, if in ways he cannot make a jump, he can just go back. It's just aligning stuff together using space. You can check it out. Vez is very, very good as a case study in game design. Um, Let me go back. How do I go back? Okay. Let's continue. So yeah, I was saying space and how you can utilize space as a core mechanic. And there's also time. You can have discrete and continuous. You can have turns or something that plays in real time. You can have clocks and races. You can even control time, like a game called Braid, for example. And one of the things, or not one of the things, main thing in core mechanics is the skills that defines the player or the character that you play with in the game. So they can be skills that require you to have physical stuff, like for example, very fast controls, or let's say dancing skills if it's a like Just Dance. So it requires physical skills of the player. Even in VR, it would need to require the ability to wear this headset and not vomit. So this can be considered as a skill, a physical skill, or as a physical core mechanic. Where do you go? It can be mental skills, like for example, observation and memory, and can be even social skills if you want to count on the player being able to interact with other player to reach their goal. Like there was a game called, I think, TikTok. The game ran differently on the game instances. So I would see a side of the game, and the other player would see another side, and we would need to interact together to solve the puzzles and progress in the game. So that's the core mechanic of it, was having people communicate together, and each one had different side of the game. Next up is attributes. So for example, you can have oh sorry, I went off that. Static attributes like colors in checkers. You can have or in chess. So what defines the the player that's playing in the game, or character that's playing in the game, is something very static. When you start the game, you're a certain class, and you have to, like, you're either zombie or a human, and it's the way the game will be running the entire time. So that's the core mechanic. You get a certain class at the beginning, and you just have to finish with that class. Or it can be dynamic, like changing colors mid a match. So you start out as the zombie, and then suddenly you start become the human, or you're a human and then become the zombie. So you change teams mid the game. So that's a dynamic attribute. And there's the factor of chance as well that you can take into mechanics. That's, for example, rolling dice. Uh, it's um, it's one of the very tricky thing, having chance into games and dice rolling, or even wheel of fortune or something, because it doesn't lie into the design area much, but it does add some spices like Jumanji, you know. Okay, so we've talked about challenges, we've talked about core mechanics, we've talked about game structure. Let's take a look at the challenges, and by challenges, I mean what the player will encounter in the lifetime of the game and how he progresses through that. So what is the challenge of the game? Like, for example, do you need to build up your tree like in LoL? I have been playing League of Legends since I think 2016, but it was always the same. You start out you have a base. You start out um, I wouldn't say weak, but you start out as basic and you build up you level yourself up throughout the game, and at the same time you're battling with someone else. So that's the challenge, right? So you need to define what is the challenge and the leveling inside of your game. It's important to think of breaking the limits. How do you want to have the challenge something new or different? For example, in Braid, if anyone heard of Braid, it's a game about time control, and they did not have, or the designer did not create the game like flat. There was this curve, and that curve is we start out with for just controlling time, like pausing time, and then there's moving time, and then there's going back in time, you know? So there's levels in the way you control time. It's not just the same. And then once you do that, once you've created the levels, you need to balance these. So you don't start from 0 and then the next level is 10. You need to create the curve, right? So you need to balance it in a way that you don't place the player in a level that is too hard for him too early, and you don't place the player in a very advanced player in a room that's too easy. So that's the balancing. Yes, I was wondering if I put that in. So you have the flow of the game. You have here the mastery axis, or the mastery side of things, and you have the challenge side of things. If the challenge is too high and the mastery is too low, you fall into the frustration. And if the challenge is too low, but the mastery is too high, you fall into the boredom zone. So the flow has to be making sense. It has to be mastery with challenge. So you're not. Sometimes it's easy. It's okay, but it gives the player the chance to feel like they're in control. But oh no, you're not in control yet, and something bigger comes along, and so he starts to hit the bar, and defeats that, and he thinks he's very good again. But surprise, surprise, you're still not. And so keeping that flow ensures that players are enjoying, the players are, oh, what's the word we just used? I forgot. Having attainable goals. They're not reaching for the sky and they cannot get it yet. So it's just right. The flow is just right. And there is a video I would like you guys to watch, and I think I'm dropping that in the link because it's very important that you listen to this amazing man. Uh, how do I get a link for it? Just a sec, I'll get it. Ah, come on. Okay, let me know if you cannot hear him. It's important you hear him, not just see the video, okay?
There is a bit of sound, yeah.
He'll talk in a minute. Let me know.
Yeah, okay. It's
So
mostly music
the
so
basic
far.
formulas of level design go: when you start out, you want to teach the player how to play. And you need to
Can you hear him? Okay, I'll try to drop the link then. I'm not sure why I cannot. Okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a bit low, so don't worry about that. Just so
Uh,
if we raise the volume, it'll be okay.
I'm not sure why I'm at my highest everywhere. I think it's low from the video. I'm at my highest. Mm, let me grab you the link very quickly because it's very important for me that you guys see this. Uh,
Sure. Honestly, we should have a Teams has failed us counter. It's at like 5 today.
no, yeah, just a sec. I think just to make it work, I had to drop it inside of Drive. So thankfully I have it. So just give me a second. Uh, I'm very sorry, guys. I should have tested this at the beginning, but mm, okay, here we go. Or no, here we don't go. Just a sec. Where did it go? Ah, okay. So I'm sharing this from my personal drive. Let me know if you're not getting it. I'm setting the share settings to anyone with a link. So let me know if you don't get it. I'll watch it on mute so that I make sense when everyone has watched it, okay? But let me know if you cannot view the video. Okay. I sent it in the chat, the drive link above. Okay, feel free to mute me because I want to hear him because every time he says it is very good, so I'll unmute it. So feel free to mute me.
Design. So, the basic formulas of level design go. When you start out, you want to teach the people, you want to
Okay, I'm not sure where everyone is at in the video. Just ping me when everyone's done. Right. Okay, good. Okay, I see most are
Alright.
done. Okay, so as Ed Macmillan said, I will not phrase it better than him. If you have a mechanic or an element that is just there for one use, then it's useless. You have to choose your stuff, and he displayed how you can have one thing that you build on it. You can change its attributes, you can change its skills, so that you build on the design. So the design is based on having something, a seed of it, and you just build on it and build on it and build on it. Make sure the player knows how to do it, understands it, and no matter what way it comes at it, at the player, he'll know that this is a saw in the end. It does the same functionality or the same thing. It kills you, but it comes out at you with different ways. Or in that video, it included the core, the game element, and expanding on the game element, on the attributes on that, or the core mechanics of adding or removing or building on that element, and that balancing. So he started out with just a static one, and then it started moving, so it leveled up a little bit, and then it became like rotational. So that's the leveling, and that's the balance. So I've reached a point where if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise their hands. And I think Ashraf is the one with the what's the word, permissions. So just raise your hand or type it. I'm not sure how you guys do it in Gaming Academy.
Yes, alright. So I don't think you can see me. 1, 2, 3. Wow, okay. Half of my head is gone. All right, wonderful. All right. So Nurhan, thank you so much. This is actually really cool. I'm a huge fan of Macmillan, so whenever he pops up
Just
on
a
my
second.
screen, it's always
We
great.
still have questions after that. We still have a session after that. Yeah, I was just
Yes, yes. I
highlighting.
just wanted to comment that. Yeah, I just
Okay,
like
thank
Macmillan,
you.
so I just wanted to
Thank
say that.
you. Thank you. Yeah, he's a favorite of mine as well.
Um, yeah. So we did have one question in the back before. Someone asked about Elden Ring and basically just Souls games. Someone asked if Soul games have a core mechanic or not. So that was the main question. So let's start with this one and then
Okay.
we'll get to the rest.
Well, first thing is important to note that all games have core mechanics. There's, n it, un I mean, unless it's just a static picture, then in that case it does not have any core mechanics. But for example, games that it's basic, it's just text, and the core mechanic is typing keywords that would guide you in text-based games. So for Elden Ring, I have not played it, but as any Soul games, it has movement, right? It has leveling up, it has attributes or skills that define what the player can and cannot do. So all of these are core mechanics. Besides also having like the regular game rules, what you can or cannot do with the world, how you interact with it, the game elements. So as I said, all games, no matter how small they are, they have core mechanics. Like for example, card games, they have core mechanic. You have, dropping or drawing, draw and drop. These are core mechanics or actions that the player can do. I hope that answers the question. Are we all clear on the idea of core mechanic? By the way, if someone doesn't understand core mechanics, please raise your hands. I'll happily go through it very quickly. I think these are specific for Gaming Academy questions, right? Can you give advice to... You're muted, Ashraf.
Whoops. Yes, thank you. So we have someone called Lean who wanted to ask a question. Lean, if you want to unmute, go for it. If not, then I guess your question has been written. So the question
Uh,
is there a core mechanic that's more important than others?
uh, well, it's up to you as a designer. Part of the design process is or best thing about design and worst thing of it is that you have all control. So you can like do I've what I've did today is list all the core mechanics that most games use, but you can come up with a different core mechanic that no one has ever used. So like for example, in Fez, they did something. They utilized both 2D and 3D space as the main core mechanic. So the short answer is no, there is no core mechanic more important than others because it comes down to how you have the player use those in the game. Is it fun or not? So for example, let's say we decided to have a card game where you could, um, I don't know, walk in the game and use the cards to summon the characters. So you have a core mechanic that is discrete, a little bit like card games. The card can or cannot do something, and at the same time you're utilizing it in a different way, and not in a board game, but in a 3D space. So it could be a good game, it could be a bad game. It comes down to how these core mechanics interact together. Um, sorry, could you
Awesome.
give advice? Sorry, go ahead, Ashraf. Not
Oh,
sure
no,
of
it's fine.
the.
It's fine. All right. So we had just have a question before that as well. I don't know if you saw it. Oh, yes, it's the one you were reading, which is, can you give advice to someone who had a game idea planned in their heads that looked really good on paper, but when trying to make it into reality, he realizes that it didn't come out as he wanted to. So should he put it aside for later, or just drop the project, or should he do something else?
Okay, so I'm jumping the gun again, but there's a part that we talk about it, and that is killing your babies. It's very evil to say that, but sometimes it's important. And as I said in the prototyping phase, when prototyping is important because it saves you a lot of time and money and energy. So if you have prototyped it, it was great. All ideas are great when they're in our heads, but when you put it down in game, it starts to show flaws. Are you able to fill in these gaps of flaws with extra core mechanics? So let's say you were thinking of a rogue game like Hades, and you go into rooms and kill and revive, and when you tried it out, it felt like it's maybe too easy. So you start to see, okay, can I fix that with adding more difficult enemies or adding more extra weapons? Is it fixable with adding more elements? If it's that the case, then go ahead, try it. And if it doesn't work, then is it fixable with adding a spice like maybe time control? Can I control the timing of my enemies? Can I control my own timings? Like try to add extra spices to the way it's working. If it's still not anywhere close to the game that you had in your head, then as I said, just know when to kill your babies. Sometimes it's exhausting and it takes a lot of time and energy to try to make something work when it's just you should just move on.
All right,
You're
awesome.
muted.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries.
Yes. So we'll take, I guess, three more questions
Just
and then keep going.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
go on.
No, I was gonna say we're kind of limited, but we're not gonna
Yes.
ignore these. We'll take it another time.
All right, wonderful. So the first question is, well, I mean, we had a question which is, can we please can we share the first schema? So I guess this is for later. I guess it's the
Oh,
prototype and checking out phase and stuff. So that would be
okay,
great if we can share it.
okay.
The next question was, when developers and designers talk about game verbs, are they generally referring to mechanics or is it something else?
Game verbs. That's a new. Um, I'm guessing what they mean is the actions in the game doesn't necessarily just is mechanics, but it's the skills. As I said, it's the skills, what you can and cannot do. But I've never heard designers say game verbs before, honestly. It's usually just mechanics.
Yeah, same for me, honestly. But yes, so they are generally referring to mechanics ed in short. All right, and the final question we'll take for the moment is from Ahmed Fuad. If you want to unmute, go for it.
Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So my question is, let's say that I came up with a concept and I made a bunch of features or a bunch of mechanics that I had in mind. And when I went into the playtesting or the concepting phase, and I went back with the restrictions because I acknowledged my restrictions, um, some of the mechanics were like due to like this is for the current project for this gaming academy, so I'm trying to develop things in parallel with multiple things such as the game mechanics and the story at the same time or the theme at the same time. Uh, do you think it would be like what is your opinion if I would have to sacrifice either a like a pillar of the story or a pillar of the core mechanics in terms to not lose on a mechanic uh due to restrictions, so like from the art restriction or the animations and etc. You think I should, is it better to lose onto the core mechanic part or like the mechanics part or on the story part, like the part of the story would not make sense or I would just drop the whole mechanic together?
How much is the story? How much is the story defining the game? Is it like I don't know, the What Remains of Edith Finch, for example? The
So
story
like
is the major part.
the major part is it relatively depends on your interpretation of the idea that I've made, that I've came up with, but probably I would say the gameplay is the part that matters most.
Then I would say kill, but I will not say kill or kill your darlings. I would say drop the story then
The
and leave it
story,
to,
okay.
yeah, because the story is the way the way we wanna express, right? But the core mechanics is the way the players get to experience it. So it's either you down their experience a little bit, or you know you don't share everything you want to share. The stories
Mhm.
is usually our way of communicating with the players, but the core mechanics is just their thing. It's their experience. So you don't want to take away from their experience just so you want to share something about, piece of yourself. I'm not
Okay,
saying there's a right answer, but it sounds like if the core mechanic is what you're betting on, then you should be continuing betting on the core mechanics and drop the story.
okay, okay, thank you.
Yours, looking forward to seeing you.
Awesome. All right. I guess we'll pause questions for now and keep going.
All right. Actually, the next bit is, I think I set it to about 5 minutes. So let's have a 5 minute exercise. I want you guys to take what we discussed about core mechanics and gameplay and, try to sketch an initial idea. And we'll pick two people from the crowd to discuss it. How about that? So we have about 5 minutes. So go ahead, go crazy.
All right. So just to make sure that we got this right, we're going to create an initial game concept idea based on
Yeah.
what we've learned about core mechanics and the general game design concepts that we've talked about so far. And we have 5 minutes to do this. صح?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Then we will continue at whatever hour it is and 15 minutes. So that's like an extra 1 minute from me, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, for just rejoining, we're going through like a very quick exercise where you try to generate an idea or a game concept using what we talked about just now, core mechanics and all of the things that we listed, challenges and levels and just a concept. I think we're counting down now. Everyone drop your pencils. You're muted, Ashraf.
I need to learn how to do this. Um,
Yes.
yes, so I was saying let's take someone that's having their hand raised and something from the chat if you would like.
Okay, then I cannot access the hand raise. Just pick one, please, Ashraf.
Okay, so there's Lean, Osama, Muhammad, and Ahmed.
um, I don't know, middle. I'm trying not to
Okay,
be
middle.
biased.
Okay,
Okay,
let's go for Osama then.
okay.
Osama, do you want to tell us what your idea is? Go for it.
Yes, hello?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Hel- Okay, alright, thank you. I'm a little bit confused, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Alright, thank you. Alright, so it will be around more like a 2D game, so that you can, let's say it will be more like Hollow Knight or Super Meat Boy and Mario 2 as a three concepts, but uh, I have like something that you can explore some spaces or some areas besides to like a quiz. It seems like a quiz, so that you can gain more skills. But the skills that you are going to gain, it will lead to you have to sacrifice another thing like stamina. If you want to dash, maybe you can lose like a sort of percentage from your HP, or like double jumping. It will invert out your movements, so that to make the mechanics more harder, so you have to let's change something besides to the obstacles that you are going to face sometimes when you just run from like something. It will you will until to reach an area, so then you will get something gets upside down. Too simple game, but just to get it more, not too much complicated to make everyone get angry, but at the same time to it, you have to get adapted to when to use this skill, and are you ready to, are you to pay for what you are want to. That's it. That's simple concept about the game.
Thank you, and thank you for capturing such so much details in such a short time. I see that you have had the core mechanics pinned down. So I see you're talking about the controls and how the skills that the player will have or the character will have. And I see that you've also pinned down the space and that the studio and the art based or the concept based on the art. Also, it comes with it that you've pinned down the rules of that game, but I think what it majorly misses is the goal of the game, something very clear and or the main directive of the game, what the players are, why the players are coming back every day to play the game. So some rules, even some goals, sorry, even if it's just a story-based goal, is needed just so that you can make the players come back again. But thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can take one from the chat. So one raised hand, one from the chat, right, Ashraf? So, I don't know if they're
Yep.
okay. I'm trying to find where the stream started, but I'm gonna pick it randomly. Okay, so Squiddy swims in the ocean. He meets his enemies. They can be small shrimps, medium turtle, or a large shark. Squiddy can roll like a tornado to escape. He can shoot ink to kill the small shrimps in. He can slap the turtles. He can do both to try and to kill shark. But if he needs to buy himself time, he has to roll away. Is this based on a earlier message? Or did I pick it right? This is the start. I think it's Sarah.
I yes, I think it's the start. But Sarah,
Okay.
is you're around? Tell us a bit more if you'd like.
Okay. I'm not sure I can hear Sarah, but
Hi, sorry, it took me a minute.
no worries. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's just basically just a simple idea where I imagine the medium to be underwater. Basically, that would give us a new game mechanics that are different from jumping and running and such. So I thought maybe that would be the fun point to start from, and then I started developing from there. So then I thought of like the enemies and they technically correlate to the mechanics of the character. So basically, Squiddy has three different things to do and three different opponents to defeat, and each one correlates to the other. That's it, basically.
Yes, I really like the idea. I really like the playing, as you said, underwater. I see that the new the spice in your game is the physics underwater. You can play with the way the sliding or jumping and all the feel underwater. That will be the spice in your game. I see that you have also pinned down the skills and the enemies and what works with whom, right? So you have enemies that you would need special skills for them that works only for them, which is great because you've worked on the leveling and the balancing and how the not to be bored throughout the whole thing. As I said to, I think, Ahmed, right? Or sorry, Osama. As I said to Osama, I think what also lacks is the goal. Why is Squiddy doing that? Why does he has enemies? Is he like a gangster kind of person? Or maybe his crime is being too cute? I don't know. So you need to have like some sort of a goal, even if it's just like a simple story thing that you will not revisit. But it's important just to have a clear goal to get the players to play the game and help Squiddy reach his goals. But thank you both, and thanks everyone that put in there. I'm not sure if I have access to Game Academy, but I can try and also like we can talk about all of these later. And of course, Ashraf is there's no one better than Ashraf, honestly, to give it thoughts that it needs. But yeah, thank you for joining me in this. So let us pick up the pace and continue. So the next part of our session today is talking about the genres in game and how that affects the game design. So we all know the main genres like RPG, like dungeon crawlers, considered RPGs. There's first-person shooters. There are third-person. It would be story-based, but there are third-person shooters. Genres come out every day. I think like roguelike games did not. I mean, they existed, but they did not have a naming as a genre until I think 10 years ago. So genres come and go, honestly. But you can list some of very popular genres. I would say the most popular genre now is battle royale games, and people just getting in a room and fighting, and also FPS and FPS combined with battle royale. And let's see how people, fight over. But yeah, how do you think game design differs in all of that? How can something as genre, like from first person to third person, for example, these seem like very two similar genres. Why would game design differ from one to another? Yeah, I'm here listing, sports games. So for example, in sports games, or let's take the example that I said, how would third person differ from first person? Mainly, for example, in third person, you can actually see the character, right? So there are stuff that the designer needs to take into account on how the camera is seeing everything with the character. But in first person, for example, the camera is what is the character, is how he's looking. So he cannot see, in third person, you can see where the character is giving his back. But in first person, you cannot see unless you're looking forward, or you can only see your forward, and that plays majorly in the way that the character moves, the design of skills, what they can do, proning or crawling or mantling. All of these stuff differ just because the camera is different. And for example, designing sports game where sports are just based on character attributes and leveling them up, like speed or in FIFA, I think there are like shoot and miss chances and all of that. So it focuses on this, while for example in shooter games is based on the mastery of weapons and, let's say, reload speeds, jumping, and the landing and stuff that's related to how you can aim and shoot and reload very fast and all of that. So it's entirely different. For example, also there are the feel of the weapons and how each weapon feels differently. Like the shotgun is different from the automatic weapons, different from RPGs, and so forth. Yeah, these are, for example, the classes and the accessories for weapons, and you would classify them. Each accessories goes with each weapon, and just go on and on. And for example, sniper rifles, how far they can see, how far they can shoot, all of that. And of course, RPG games focusing on, let's say you have a skill and the mastery of that skill, so you can heal people more, or you can, I don't know, aim. If you're like a ranged character, you can aim very far or very fast, or you can move faster. So each game has its own, or each genre defines the attributes for that character and the skill for that character majorly, unless you're defining something new in that genre, and affects the way that overall design works, like the rules of the world, the rules of the game. Uh, is it time-based? Is it not? And so forth. There's also games that are based on storytelling, like I'm pretty sure everyone knows Life is Strange, for example. It's something that's based entirely on the story and the mechanic of rewinding. So I mean, one cannot go without the other, but you only rewind because of the story, right? So the major player you have is the story. You want the people to know what the story is, and if they can change it, giving the player the power to change it. You can have linear storyline and non-linear. So linear is that whatever you do, the story will just take its place, right? Uncharted, you can keep jumping off a cliff, but or dying, or I don't know, doing all sorts of weird stuff, but the story is just the same. It doesn't matter what you do. But for example, as I just said, in Life is Strange, you can change the story, even if there are presets that you cannot change, but you can still have. There are other stories like The Witcher, for example. You can have multiple endings according to your decisions and your actions. So that's a non-linear storytelling. There are also immersion storytelling, like uh, being in a open world game, and you're the one who is creating the story, for example. Okay, so that also with respect to genre, it affects the world design. As I said, for example, if we're talking about a third-person shooter, can it be in a peaceful environment that it's so greenish and full of life and animals, and something that only Snow White would live in? Would those two make sense to wrap in together? So world design is very much goes hand to hand with the type of game that you're going for. So if you're going for a first person shooter, you cannot have a design of a world that you're the one who's breaking it, right? You're trying to save it usually in games. So maybe having first person puzzle solver, for example, like The Witness, would work, and you would give it that peaceful uh, experience that you're looking for in the world design. Um You also think of the depth of its creation. You can even think of the history of the world. If it's an RPG game, you want to make sense of why this character can, I don't know, shoot arrows from his hand while someone else can only shoot fire, or something like Avatar. And I mean Avatar the cartoon, not Avatar the movie, or not Avatar. You know what I mean? So yeah, like there are elements. You want to make sense where there are elements, why people can use some elements and some people can't. So you determine the depth of that creation of the world. You can compare easily the depth of world design for RPGs versus the world design for Super Mario, for example, because RPG games are so full of details. You need something very thought of and well thought of, and something very studied. You have studied the world that you have created. You have a good lore, but I don't think we need like a wiki for Super Mario's lore, right? I mean, I'm probably pretty sure there is, but it's for other reasons other than just listing the history of Mario's world, right? There are also like time periods. Some games go for going back in time and all of that, and having the the exploration aspect of that time as the main design of that game. Like for example, in Assassin's Creed, to me, utilizes that very well because it's sometimes you're just okay walking around in the streets of Venus, and I'm talking about Assassin's Creed 2, my personal favorite. So just walk around and see the popular landmarks during the time they were created or in another time. So yeah, and also affects the aesthetics and gameplay, and we'll talk about that in a minute or in a second. Yeah, like as I said, if the world is in clay, will the players be able to reshape it? So the world, how it is created, can it affect the gameplay? Does it work with the design as game design and core mechanics, or is it just there to set the mood or set the experience? I think I added it later, but we'll come back to the world setting. Sorry. So yeah, music and art, and by art I don't mean just music. I mean the models, the animations, the any sort of asset that there is in game, even if it's just VFX or particles. That's what I'm encompassing here with art. And music, also it should be also, and sound effects, everything that is coming together to make the game experience or the game feel or finalizes the final touches, the polishing part of the game. And of course, the art that is a core when you're starting out, as I think Osama mentioned, he mentioned that it's something that is like Halo Knight. So he has a art bar, or he has an art target, how the game will look like. And it's very important to know that very early on because it helps set the mood. Like for example, if you're starting out a game, let's say a game about hope, and a game about winning, and a game about finding the good things in life. You don't want the mood to be dark and I don't know, the color scheme being gray and brownish and black. You're looking for something else, so you need to define that early on, especially because when you reach the phase that you're talking about the game with artists, you want to have like a mood board. You want to have at least I would say concept arts from other games, you can, or even movies, you can grab them and do it like in a mood board. This is what I'm looking for in the game. This is what will help pass on that kind of experience to the player, because the game is not just core mechanics and some levels. The game has to grab you, like it's just a screen, right? But you need to have the player feel that he's inside. Everything is working well together, that you don't notice how much time you're playing the game, right? So as I said, art style decisions, you need to early on know what the art style you're looking for. Is it art-based game, stylized, realistic? Does the art affect the game at all in the mechanics, for example? Is it pixel or voxel? Is the game mood dependent? Is it music-based game? So if it's a music-based game, you need to have all the kinds of beats that jump up with the sounds and all of that. So that's a different kind of art style. And how relevant is that art style is important in storytelling. So also, as I said, determines the game experience. And one of the things that I wanted to take into our discussion today concerning how we set the game experience with core mechanics and art and music is Death Stranding. I'm not sure if everyone knows Death Stranding, but it's one of my very, very favorite games, personal favorite. And the thing is about this game is it's like an apocalyptic world. Okay, there are these I would say like ghosts, and you're a delivery man in a apocalyptic world where sometimes these ghosts will come up. The mood setting that Kojima did in this world is that there's no one, literally no one, that you can interact with in this world. At first it was very weird. Why am I just running up and walking in this very weird world? But it turns out that's the experience, to feel lonely, to feel that there's no one, to know what's wrong with that world, to feel the apocalyptic side of that world. Yes, it's very beautiful, but it's because no one is there and no one can enjoy it. And being a delivery man is actually the most dangerous job in that world. So I mean, I suggest people check this game out if they want to take a case study of how art and music set the mood for and plays a major part in the experience of the game, and of course the core mechanics. But just talking about art and music and how they truly grasp you into a very unforgettable experience. Uh, Another thing that I wanted to show you is Thomas Was Alone. Judging by the quality of sound before, I'm not very hopeful, but let us watch this game.
Thomas was alone. Wow, a weird first thought to have. Spikes? That was new. Claire avoided them. She decided they were most likely her kryptonite. Not the rubbish red kryptonite either, the proper radioactive green stuff.
So yes, Thomas Was Alone is a very exceptional game, and as you see, no expensive art, and as it was written, you don't need a ton of people to really get a good story across. Uh, its storytelling is engaging, and as you see, the characters are just shapes, right? But the designer was able to play to these shapes being part of the game design and how they can help each other, level up and go through the levels and all that. So yeah, that's one example of how art plays into this the design of the game. Sorry, I'm not sure why. Next up is also another favorite game of mine. Uh, Let me play it. Not sure where it went. Okay. So yeah, that's Ink. It's as you see, you don't really need characters at all. You don't really need, or maybe some games do, but to have a fun game, you don't need much characters. You don't need, I don't know, much elements at that point. I mean, in Ink, it makes it enjoyable just with a couple or triple or some elements. You don't need to have very detailed storyline. You just need good, fun movement mechanics, and you can make it work. So yeah, these are case studies that I liked, and I know we don't have enough time, but feel free to drop it in Gaming Academy Discord. I'm sorry, Ashraf, if I'm saying this, but I would like people to study games that they play, because the only way to learn is to do that. You don't, it's not with books, it's mainly with playing. You check out what other games have, break it down, and learn from it. So there are a lot of popular games that we can do with it. It's either Tetris or Mario or Space Invaders. You can pick up any old school, let's call it old school or retro games, and break it down. So you need to just highlight the rules in the game and what is the goal, what are the elements in that game, and what is the core mechanics. These are the main four things that you need to know in any game when you're making your game. Just know these. So sorry. So these are the main four elements that you need to either define another game's design or define yours. So just if you answer these four questions, you'll probably have pinned down the main game design of your game. So yeah, so I was saying Space Invaders or Super Mario or Tetris. And that is, I would say, next or the second part of our questions, Q&A section. Let me check. Yeah, we talked about, okay, let's skip the QA. I think I don't have time. I'm sorry, we'll keep it in the end. So we talked about prototyping, and we even talked about people trying to prototype their games throughout the session. But I also still would like to emphasize how this is the most important phase. And it's important to just try it out and test with friends and strangers and put it on. I mean, back in my day when I started, we didn't have itch, but it was called Game Jolt. I'm not sure if it's still up. But put your game online. Don't be afraid to show your game. I mean, there's no such thing as someone will steal it, because probably your game is based on someone else's game that you have played. So just add your game, get the feedback, build on it, and continue building on it, and continue prototyping. And remember to keep an open mind. If someone sort of pinpoints issues in the design of your game, just take it, because that's a potential player, right? So someone else could be saying that. So keep an open mind on comments. Why is it here? Okay, I said boomer, so sorry. Okay, so we talked about the game making pipeline. I know we said maybe this is very bad, so I said kill your darlings. I saw someone suggesting that, so I will do that. As I said, game researching to learn from other games, break them down, and see what they did that made it cool. And you can try and morph that into your game. So you can see that easily Mario is the godfather of every platforming game, right? So at its core, if you take a look at any game, at its core, everyone is now working with left to right side scrolling. Even there, no one did potentially that this is the way, right? But most games do. So break down game elements, if any game that you like or similar to the game that you want to do. You don't have to like it, just similar, and highlight what does make that game fun, what's core mechanics, what is the game rules, and try to morph it into your game. So does your game check out these boxes? What's different in your game than that game? Research similar games, look at references and for inspiration, but never, it's important to never take something, as they say, it's called plagiarism or pilgrism. I'm not sure, but yeah, just don't take someone else's work and say that is your own. But feel free to take like inspiration or like most of Kojima games feels like they're inspired from movies, some movies, right? So you can see the inspirations, but you know that this is Kojima's, it's no one else's. So try to see other games for references, but don't copy a thing 100%. And determine, as I said, what's different in your game, what makes it special. Create something called game design documents. So everything that we talked about today, you just add it in a in a document that would be considered like the Bible of the game, as some designers call it. So everything that you have designed goes into the game design document. So whenever there are like conflicts between the developer and the designer, or even the testers, there are conflict between the QA and devs, and they go, okay, let's go to the GDD and look what it says should be doing or behaving when this case happens. The GDD contains everything in the game, from controls, from which buttons do what, to how, let's say, some skills build on some other skills in the skill tree, and you know, everything that you have in your game should be in the GDD, and there should be like a lockdown. So there are stuff that might be still changing, but at some point you need to lock down your GDD so that it does not lose its it doesn't morph too much from what it started from. So yeah, enlisting everything makes you understand your game better and determines scalability. You would start to understand how big your game is, and you would start to understand how much time it would need and how much money, and how you would like to do that slice or vertical slice that we talked about when you're prototyping. That showcases everything in your game, so you don't leave anything out when you're pitching it to potential publishers or investors. You will be able to showcase everything that should be in the game, and they can see how the game will look like when it's finished. And also helps you list all the mechanics and features. I think we're about the no. So in conclusion, I would like to list the resources that I've used to study game design. So there's a book called Art of Game Design. That's the best you'll find on game design. Like if you have it, probably don't need it, the other books, but for humility's sake, just look at others' resources. But Art of Game Design is very good. And I introduced a lot of the key main concepts or the introductory concepts today from Art of Game Design. And there's also Introduction to Game Design. That is a course on Coursera. I think it's now called a specialization, because when I took it, it was 10 years ago. So now it's a specialization of game design by California Institute of Arts, and there is world design, character design, story design, like 5 courses. It's very helpful. And there is a book called Level Up. It's like a shrunken version from Art of Game Design, because Art of Game Design is very big. So for people who are not fans of reading, Level Up will provide you just as the same, not the same, but they will provide you the main key points of game design, but like scratching the surface of game design. And the advices that I have is to play a lot and read a lot, and to find the genre that works for you. So sometimes people like to play certain type of games, but they're not necessarily the best when it comes to creating those types of games. I love RPGs. I love mainly RPGs, and Final Fantasy, Death Stranding, but time and time has shown me that I'm best in creating first-person and third-person shooter games, and I've been doing that for 8 years. And I hate first-person shooter games, but it's what I do best. So find your genre is very important. Doesn't mean that you cannot do what you want, or what you like, but you'll just find it that you do other genres seamlessly. It doesn't have to be the style that you play. It's important just to remember that. And as I said, practice reverse engineering. Break down the work of other people. Take games and try to see how they're designed. It's important, even if you're a developer, try to reverse engineering how some of the mechanics have been implemented. Find flaws in your design. as I said, keep an open mind. It's best to ask yourself questions that mark or highlight the flaws better than doing the development phase and then players would highlight these flaws. Every time you create something new, just question it. Try to bombard it with all sorts of what if I do this? Does this still stand? Is this still fun? Is this core mechanic? Does this core mechanic make sense to have? So keep finding flaws in your design to make sure that it's flawless. And also always reach out to other people. You can follow threads on Reddit. You can follow, or you can even post it on a communities on Discord. I'm not sure where everyone is located, but I'm pretty sure each and everyone has their local communities where they can discuss these ideas with. And as I said, don't be afraid to get your ideas stolen. There's no such thing. Your ideas will only come out as you imagine them. No one will be able to grab it and make it like you want to do them. And polish and make things look good, but just know when to stop, because as they say, art is never done, only abandoned, I think is the saying. So know when is the limit to polishing, because some games I know some games I know haven't been like released or seen the light because people kept polishing and polishing and polishing and upgrading the way it looks, upgrading the way it feels, until they couldn't release it anymore due to restrictions and money and time and all of that. So polishing is good, but always remember when to stop. And with that, we have reached the end of the very short session that we had on game design, because the game design truly is a very big thing, or a what's the word, a sea of knowledge, and we just like waved at it from very far away. But I hope I provided everyone with the basic knowledge that they need to kick off their games. And I say we have about 10 minutes, 8 minutes to be exact, for questions, but I will leave that to Ashraf, our main coordinator. You're muted.
Yes, all right.
Okay.
Yes. This is the first time I actually know what it is. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Nourhan. This was really, really fun. I learned a lot, and there's a lot that I had to refresh. So it's great to to hear all of this again. Also, I will probably be giving Death Stranding a chance now that you've given me enough information to actually want to play it. So I'm excited now. All right. So we have two people with raised hands. So I guess we can start with those questions. I have Osama first and Ahmed second. And if anyone else has any questions, you can please type them in. And if there's anything on Discord, I'll also include it. All right. So Osama, if you'd like to start.
All right, I'm so
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Yes, great.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Or the voice is
Hello.
too far? Hello? The voice is okay or the internet
Yes.
got a
Yes,
problem?
that's good. That's
Okay,
good.
now it's great. Okay, all right. Thank you. I'm so sorry. All right. So about you told us about how I can define or how I can get, let's say, catch the players or put the idea of how can make the other people play my game, because I for for the couple of years later I was trying to make so many games
I think you broke off. I can hear you.
Yeah, same here. Osama, do you think you can type your question?
Yes, I don't. There's a problem.
All right, hello. I'll try to text him and see if we can get it to work.
Okay.
And Ahmed, if you'd like to ask your question as well, go for it.
Hello again.
Hello.
So my question is less really about the actual topic that we were talking about, or more of a career question, if that's
Okay.
okay. So, as like someone that's trying to get into the industry and etc., how would you advise someone to try to be a game designer? Especially, with very similar restrictions that you've experienced. I live in Egypt, and let's just say that it's not very thriving in here, you know?
Yeah, okay. Well, it's important to be a designer and something else in Egypt. So you're a designer and a developer. You're a designer and an artist, you know. It's important to have an extra set of skills to be able to support yourself to get into game dev so that you can be a designer, you know. So Omar gets my husband actually is a mainly entered as a tester and QA assurance or quality assurance and spent like I think 8 to 10 years being QA. And by the end of it, he starts to actually do some design work, and now he's working as a designer. So it's a process that takes time, especially if you're aiming just for Egypt. And you in Egypt, let's face it, you don't get to have a lot of experience to show as a designer. So it's important to make sure that you have another set of skills. Uh, but it's also important to know that we're now post the pandemic. I mean, I'm from a time where working remotely with people was not an option, but now you can see a lot of studios, even small ones, are recruiting for designers and developers remotely, um, primarily because it's a little bit cheaper than actually on site. So you can make sure while you do that, make sure that you look for job opportunities online. Don't make it like make your world bigger. Don't make it just for your local area, you know,
Yeah,
or your
so
local. Mm.
I was already thinking about the online thing.
Yeah, it should.
Where do you think are the places to look? Because practically LinkedIn is like very
Well,
it's very, very rare to find a like remote anywhere.
the problem with LinkedIn is trying to get you remote in Egypt. So, sometimes I would have to get into the pages of, let's say, Insomniac games. For example, I'm getting crazy tonight. I want to apply for Insomniac games. I go into Insomniac games page itself on LinkedIn, and you go navigate to the jobs tab. You'll
Mhm.
find sometimes that they need intern designers or intern developers, very, very entry level jobs. Doesn't have to be Insomniac, but you can go to directly to pages, and LinkedIn sort of starts linking you with other pages that are similar, so you can find the jobs in there too. And there's another source for remote jobs. It's called remotegamejobs.com. Usually there are posts on remote game jobs as it says on from experts to juniors to entry levels in art and dev and all of that. So you can also check
Mhm.
that out.
Another small question. So I've been already doing sound design and music composing, yeah, composing for like games and media generally, for like multiple years now. Do you
Mhm.
think that really counts as like game designer and a sound designer, or would that be like too far of a
If you
department?
have something to show for it, it counts. So if you have like GitHub or a account on itch.io or anything, then that counts because this is the actual experience that you can showcase. But if it's just, hobbyist projects, it does not count, unfortunately.
I have them on my itch, and I have them on my portfolio, and I
Then
have
it does
everything.
count. Yes, it does
Okay,
count.
okay, perfect. Thank you,
No worries and good
Great.
luck.
Thank you, Ahmad.
thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we have a question from Bomberwins, which is, should we stress ourselves to the maximum and be like 100% working on the game to give the best results in the shortest amount of time, or should we take it slow while having fun, but at the same time, take more time and less chance to go back and fix issues?
It depends. Is this your main job or is it just a hobbyist job? Because if it's your main job, then you need to give it 150, actually, not just 100, but you need to plan it out. So part of success is plans. You need to make sure that you're not running a sprint and then you just cannot run anymore. It's a marathon and you need to sort of regulate your breaths to make sure that you make it to the end. I say always that what's fun should be fun, and making games should be fun because they're fun. And if it's stressful, you will not be able to make it fun. But at the same time, you shouldn't be so lax that you're not doing any progress. So just discipline and planning is key, because a lot of people go into games thinking that it's about the passion and the drive and all of that, but discipline is actually what makes games get shipped, because at some point you will not be able to continue, but you have to continue like a marathon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries.
We have Lean raising her hand, and we have Osama typed his question. So let's start with Lean and then end
Can
with
I just
Osama.
say something? Okay.
Yeah,
Because I
for
have to
sure, for
run.
sure.
No, okay.
Okay. Like, or is it you need to go
Yeah,
then?
let's have
That's
another
totally
one.
fine.
Let's have, you said lean,
Okay.
so let's go with lean. I'm sorry, Osama.
Type. All right. Yes. Okay, Lean. Thank you.
Um, can you hear me? Or
Yes.
yeah? Okay. I have two questions, okay? The first one is what's the
Can we
hardest part?
pick one?
Huh?
I'm sorry. Can you pick
Yeah,
just one? I'm very
yeah, yeah.
sorry. I will answer this
No,
asynchronously, I promise.
yeah, it's fine, it's fine.
Okay.
What's the hardest part of game design, and like how do I make my game catchy to like attract the play more players to play it and like to make them play it more?
Okay, so you said how to make it attractive. What was the first part?
What's the hardest part of making like game design?
Okay, hardest part is actually the leveling. So you know that you want creating the levels. So you have a basic concept. You have the enemies, and you have, let's say, 2, 3 levels stretched out, maybe even the 10th level. But planning the in between is actually what's very challenging, because you don't want, as I said, you don't want it to be very boring. You don't want it to be very frustrating. So finding that part, the sweet little spot in the middle, is actually the most challenging thing in games, and making people want to come to your game is leaving something for them every time. So for example, in in cannot pick a game right now, I'm not sure why, but let's say for Final Fantasy, if you ever played Final Fantasy, the main thing is the story. You want to know what happens next. You want to know what's going to happen to that character that you love so much. So the game got me attached to the characters that I love him so much that I want to know what happens. In other games, it's gadgets and cool stuff, and the adrenaline rush when you use the, let's say, Overwatch or any sort of online game. So each game has its own unique flavor. You need to play to the strength of your game. If it's a game about time control, for example, can you reverse time? Can you control other people's time? Can you do that on a multiplayer level, or playing with others, and pausing them and removing the pause and all of that? So you need to find the strength in your game and play on it. And as Ed mentioned, you need to build on these main elements. If you have an element, try to make it bigger and build on it, so that you always leave something for the players that they want to come back to.
Thank you.
No worries.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Nurhan. This was wonderful. Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for joining us as well at the Gaming Academy. We'll speak soon, and if anyone has any other questions, just throw them in the Discord. All right.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. See you. Good luck to everyone.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care. See you.